So thank you very much for coming to this interview, and thank you for agreeing to talk to us. And now my question is, why are you here? What is this Aurora Prize for you? Is it the importance of it?
I must tell you, I am here out of friendship for one man, and that is Vartan Gregorian, who of course is one of the organizers of this. And when Vartan says, Ted, can you come to Armenia for a weekend? My answer is, of course. But I also think it's a terribly important issue, not just in terms of what has happened to the Armenian people over the years, but because we keep repeating history. And there have been, tragically, so many genocides in our lifetime and over the course of the past 100 years. So I think it's important to bear witness and to be part of the conversation.
And it's really, it seems to me, a very interesting project, right? It's not only Armenian genocide, but beyond that.
Exactly. Right? And I think those who have endured this kind of tragedy in their national life, whether it's the Jewish people or whether it's the Armenian people, I think there is a great understanding there that it brings with it a responsibility not only to draw attention to what has happened to their particular group, but to all the people who suffer from man's inhumanity to man.
And Ted, one question about calling it genocide or not calling. Very often you see in American newspapers alleged genocide,
yes,
or massacres. There's a fight.
Look,
the Armenian diaspora is fighting almost every year. Yes. On the eve of April 24. The president doesn't say genocide, he says something else.
Yes.
Even maybe stronger than genocide word itself, but he still doesn't pronounce that word. What's your feeling as a journalist and as a man who champions on the eve of April 24? The president doesn't say genocide, he says something else.
Yes.
Even maybe stronger than genocide word itself, but he still doesn't pronounce that word. What's your feeling as a journalist and as a man who champions, human rights? And
as a journalist, I understand why it happens. There are always national interests involved. Turkey is a very important ally within NATO to the United States. There are other interests at play, and the Turks are particularly adamant about insisting that the genocide never happens. As a human being, I would suggest to my Turkish friends that they look at what the Germans have done. And I think Germany has been much more upfront about acknowledging what happened in the 1930s and 1940s. And I think one of the extraordinary evolutions in national history in my lifetime is watching the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, as perhaps the global leader of humanitarian efforts to help Syrian refugees and Libyan refugees and other refugees from North Africa, and to take a responsibility precisely because of Germany's role in the genocide against the Jewish people and so many others before and during the World War.
And Ted, another question, maybe unrelated to this, but again, it's very important. You covered Russia and Soviet Union during your career, and I remember your broadcast, very fascinating broadcast. And what do you think about Russia now? Seems to me we're coming back again to the Cold War environment. What do you think?
I think we have to be realistic. That if we look at this not just from the Western point of view, but also from the Russian point of view, the expansion of NATO is clearly something that gives Russian leadership heartburn. Mm-hmm. They worry about that, and I think it's quite understandable that they do. Do I approve of all Russian reactions and policies? Absolutely not. But I think it is important that we look at the whole picture. And it would be tragic if the United States and Russia allowed themselves to be drawn once again into the kind of unproductive relationship, in fact, dangerous relationship, that existed during the 1950s and 60s and into the 70s and 80s. We have come so far. It would be very sad if we allowed ourselves to be drawn back into a Cold War.
And you see that Russia is now so aggressive towards its neighbors, and for example, Ukraine.
Yes.
They're jealously attacking
Yes.
Ukraine because they want to be closer to the European Union.
Yes.
And they're playing their part also here in this region,
Yes.
where two countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan, are in conflict. Russia is selling advanced weaponry to Azerbaijanis and outdated weaponry to Armenia. What do you have to say about this?
Again, I think it is tragic because it will lead inevitably, not necessarily to a direct war between the United States and the Soviet Union. Frankly, I don't see the United States or NATO getting into a fighting war with Russia over some of the old republics that the Russians now seem to want to draw back into their sphere of influence again. But it will certainly create a more dangerous world. And do I understand from the point of view of Armenians or Ukrainians why this is a subject of great pain and concern to them? Of course I do. But do I believe that we should allow it to draw Russia and the United States into a direct confrontation? I do not. And I wish that both sides could be a little more logical in terms of not pushing too hard.
Ted, one last question. What would be your headline? For example, if you had still your program running for this event or for your trip to Armenia. Assume you are with microphone, you are standing next to Genocide Memorial and you're starting your program.
Well, I wish I could be more eloquent for you right now, but George Santayana once said, "Those who do not learn from the lessons of history are doomed to re-experience it, or doomed to repeat the mistakes of history." It is important that we look at the lessons that both the Armenian genocide and other genocides during the past 100 years have presented to the public at large. Because if we do not learn from them, we are doomed to re-experience them. And that would be a tragedy beyond measure.
Thank you so much, Ted. Thank you very much.